a new beginning. We are the ones of the spoken word. We are the ones who keep the planet spinning. Yeah, yes, one day we will rule the world.
I do love that tune. Hey guys, I'm Si, and welcome to AC Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell football show, Euro 2020, and this is episode number 10. The Euros are hotting up, and Switzerland are not going out without a fight, so we'll keep an eye on that throughout the show. But we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and AC Podcast Nation, of course, your home to many great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts, and more. So please do follow us on social media for more information on upcoming guests and shows and any news which might be popping up over the next week or two. You just don't know what's going to show up on there, I've got to be honest. But you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can click that bell for notifications. And, of course, if you prefer your podcast in audio format, you can get them at the usual places. Just search Ace Podcast Nation. Well over 460 shows now, I think. But just while we wait for the couple of the latecomers, the stragglers, as it were, a big thank you to Black Diamond Sports, as ever. Black Diamond Sports is a global sports agency which represents sports stars from around the world. And for more information, you can visit their website, their social media pages, the links to which are all in the description below. And of course, a big thank you to Dan Ralston and Bespoke Financial for sponsoring the shows throughout the tournament. And as ever, we appreciate their support. Bespoke Financial specialise in life insurance, critical illness, income protection, mortgages, and sports cover. And of course, Darren's giving away a free will at the moment worth £140 cash. So with any new policy which is taken out, please check him out. Give him a call. Do not miss out on an incredible offer. He's looked after Andy for various policies over the years, including the critical illness, the injury cover. They are top of their field. They provide award-winning service, and we are very proud to partner with such a brand. And we thank them for sponsoring the shows, as ever. But with no further ado, let's get into it. First of all, my co-host, he is the goal collector. He is the man with a plan, some would say. The man from the second worst town in the UK, but has he got the worst internet in the UK? Let's find out. Live via satellite, it is former England under-21 striker, Mr. Andrew Campbell. How are you, my friend?
Good evening. It might be voted the worst now. It's been a while, since I brought that news to Ace Podcast Nation. So,
we'll have to change that, won't we?
Yeah, it might be the worst, which would be quite an accolade. Listen, I'm good. I think I'm more relaxed tonight than I will be tomorrow night. About this time, I'm going to be a bag of nerves tomorrow. I'm so excited for the game. Can't wait. But I know we're going to talk about it. I know there's a very good game still going on. So keep an eye on that, and hopefully we get. I don't know. I hope we just get a win in extra time, because I don't want to miss the penalties. So I've got a TV in front of me.
Indeed. Rhodri just sent me a text message just as we were going on live, and he just said Switzerland on pens, laughing emoji. I think that was his prediction, wasn't it? Switzerland. I think me and him said Switzerland on pens. So there we go.
That's what he said.
We'll see. But of course, we're joined yet again. I'm very happy to say by ex-Wales, Swansea, and Cardiff forward, Mr. David Giles. How are you, Gilo?
I'm good, Si. Thank you. Good evening, Andy.
Hi, Gilo. Great to have you on again. A lot seems to happen every time we have a show. I know we have a show every couple of days. I know obviously Rhodri was on and you were on a few days before, but it just seems as though loads are happening in the football world. Loads are happening. Just a preview, and the closer we get to these, obviously the game's happening now. The games are happening tonight, which is a massive game, by the way. And then obviously 2 big games tomorrow. They're just coming thick and fast, which is great. I can't probably hide my excitement, to be fair, because this is the biggest moment of my life as a supporter. You know what I mean? I've heard everything from my dad about England and in 1966 and all this, and which is a great heritage, great history. But I want my own.
This is their chance,
I'm greedy. Yeah, I'm greedy.
This is their chance, mate. The way it's worked out, this is their chance to win a tournament.
Yeah. I've always said I'd love it to happen in my lifetime, and I'll be honest, I'm more confident about this one than I was about the last World Cup. I'm more confident now with the players that we've got, with the manager, everything. There's not as much expectation and hype and euphoria around what's going on than there normally is at this time, which is great. You know, I mean, everything's just kept ticking over. I think it'll get bigger tomorrow in the morning. I think it'll keep on getting wrapped up. But I think it's probably good that they're playing in Italy tomorrow as well. I think it'll. I'm not saying it's a good thing for the players, but I think for the country and probably the euphoria and expectations, I think it's good to step out that bubble a little bit.
100%, mate. So, very quickly, Gaz sent in a super chat, so I'll get that in quick. I'm not reading that. He can bugger off. Everyone else can read it. Andy will read it. Andy can read it.
He's bang on 3 times.
Go on, for the audio listeners, Andy, what did Gaz say for his super chat? Seeing as he paid,
Gaz says, and Gaz doesn't lie, by the way, so Gaz tells the truth and nothing but the truth. It's coming home, football's coming home. Bang on.
So, as I want to get Gilo's take on what I said the other day very quickly before we move on to some other bits. But so Gilo, I think it was Wednesday with Rhodri, I said, and I put the question to him and to Andy and Rhodri, but particularly Andy as an English man. I said, if England do not reach the final with the way things have turned out and the draw's gone and the teams have crashed out, obviously your expectations change from what they were before the tournament. Would it be a failure if England don't make it to the final?
Yes, I think it will be, because the draw is working out absolutely fantastic for them. Listen, England... they are one of the favourites, and they can go all the way and win it, and I hope they do. And like Andy said about his dad, I watched every game of the '66 World Cup. Actually, I was in Butlins for a fortnight with my mum and dad, and I don't know whether people have been there, but we watched it in a bar where in Butlins they used to have these big glass screens under the water in the pool. Of course, the game was going on. You'd always get the odd joker come down with his bathers down, showing his backside. So you were looking at that, or looking at someone's backside. But no, listen, England got a great chance. Alan Shearer said the other night they'll never ever get a better chance than this. And I believe with this England team, again, I go back to what Andy said. He's a teammate of Gareth Southgate. I really like Gareth Southgate with the way he deals with it. He never gets over the top or too excited. He's always in control. But this England team, I believe, have got not just a quality team on the pitch, they've got a fabulous bench to bring on. And the other night, bringing people like Jack Grealish on, who's arguably, technically, ability-wise, probably the best in the England squad.
Yeah, but Rashford barely played.
Exactly.
Jadon Sancho's played 6 minutes. They're all fresh, which is quite a frightening prospect. However, what I would say, and is, whilst I do believe that if England don't get to the final, then it is a failure. I think I have seen 1 or 2 people get a bit carried away thinking that if you make the final, you automatically win it. And I think that's not the case, because you're probably going to come up against one of Italy or Belgium. But of course, you've got Spain at the moment are still in it. That Italy and Belgium team are very, very difficult to beat. And they are a whole different kettle of fish with all due respect, to a Ukraine or even, to a Denmark or someone like that. I think England would be foolish to think that get too carried away too quickly. And whilst I agree with Gilo, Gareth Southgate won't let that happen. But it's the media which so often have that influence of creating pressure or expectations.
Yeah.
And which, of course, rubs up. That's why you get so many Scottish, Welsh, Irish people get so frustrated with it. But, of course, from an England point of view, I think that's the word, almost being a bit lax or a bit arrogant is the thing they've got to guard against the most, particularly in this, the Ukraine game. If they play the way they can play, they'll win. But if they go in like France did, thinking, well, we've already beaten Germany, so, Ukraine's nothing, is it? That's where you get unstuck, isn't it?
Oh, listen, I think, starting with the Gareth Southgate point, I think Gareth's handled himself with such integrity. It hasn't all gone his way, by the way, and gone England's way. You look at the Scotland game, they were brutal. He took an absolute hammering on social media, in the press, team selections, every probably single start. Everyone's hammered him about his team selection. It's been the wrong team, wrong formation. He's pulled up trees in some respects. He's got some things really right. And listen, you've got to back your manager. If you don't back your manager, then what's the point of him being in charge? We all think that we know better than a national football manager. Listen, we're all allowed our own opinion, but end of the day, I wouldn't have done what he'd have done. I wouldn't have had probably the balls to do it. I wouldn't have probably lasted as long keeping the same team as he did, especially in the Germany game. I'd have probably pressed that panic button a little bit earlier and brought Jack on and brought probably Rashford on, or maybe Sancho on, and gone for it a little bit earlier. That's why he's a top manager with a great future ahead of him, and I think it's unbelievable. To go on to the if they don't get the final, I think it's a massive underachievement if they don't get there. We spoke to Emil Heskey, we spoke to Adrian Brevington on our show about the golden generation. The golden generation had some world-class footballers in their team. And players who would probably walk into this team now, in my opinion, the David Beckhams, the Michael Owens, the Stevie G's, the Frank Lampards, etc. But this is a team, we're not playing players out of position. We're playing a team who knows exactly their role and their job and their responsibility within that 90-minute process, and that's what it is. It's a process. The manager's well drilled, and listen, I think the future's bright, and I think it's a real good opportunity for these players to make themselves heroes, like the guys at 66. The guys at 66 are still heroes, and rightly so. And these guys will be as well to people now and people in the future. But they've got to do the work on the pitch. And for me, the trickiest game is tomorrow. You can only look to the next game, and the next game, Ukraine. You can only beat what's in front of you. Everything's against Ukraine. The extra time, a couple of injuries, playing after we did, the travel, everything's set up for England to qualify and go through. But you can only do that on the football pitch. And then after that, you look again at another game. It could be Czech Republic again at Wembley. It could be Denmark at Wembley. You can't obviously make those judgments until the games are set in stone. But listen, it's a massive opportunity for the country and the players. And I just hope in a week's time that we're talking about England in the final on the Sunday than that they've underachieved, because I think for the whole of British football, I think it would be nice for British football to get that stigma of England getting in the final or a home nations getting in the final.
So,
for the audio listeners, Si shook his head.
So I've been asked like loads of times, and I think someone just asked me. I think it was Holgate that just said, "I heard a rumor you're supporting England." So is this true? So I did clarify on Wednesday. I think I said, look, I won't be supporting England, as in I won't be cheering them on, and I won't be like, "Oh, come on, England," blah blah blah. However, if England was to win it, I would be delighted for Andy and for some of my other friends who are English, who've gone through similar to what I've gone through as a Welsh fan, so many failures and so many near misses and stuff like that. We all know what that's like as football fans. It's just like Rhodri said on Wednesday, it's you don't begrudge the winning, it's the aftermath. And when we're like 20 years later and Andy's still going on about 2020 and England's still winning the Euros. That's when that's where you get the dish. Right. Anyway, before I want to put a lot of focus on Belgium versus Italy tonight. But before we do that, I wanted to touch on a few little non-Euro bits because, Friday traditionally, championship show, we talk a bit of football news normally. So I did want to just touch on a few things, some of them championship related. So first and foremost, Billy Gilmour, who obviously impressed in the Scottish team before getting COVID, and we had all that controversy with the England game and stuff like that. But he is signed for Norwich City on loan. Is that a good move, Ange, do you think?
I think he's got to play, and he's got to play 38 league games. And the way to play 38 league games is going to be a team who's come up to the Premier League. So I think he's in a really good position that he's going to play. And for his development, he will play every minute of every single game for Norwich City, I believe, if he's fit. And I look at the Scotland team, and you've got Grant Hanley. So you've got somebody there who already got a link to. It's probably a similar scenario that he's up against all odds. He's going to be playing against better players week in, week out. So for me, there's no expectation on him. There's no pressure on him. But listen, he's a talented footballer. I'm sure he will excel. He'll show Chelsea how good he is. He'll show the rest of the Premier League how good he is. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him because I think he needs to be tried and tested. I think he needs to be tried and tested all of the time against the Man Cities, the Liverpools, the Man Uniteds, not just for Chelsea and a world-class team. You know what I mean? Because when you're a world-class player and a world-class team, it works. But when you're a very good footballer in not a very good side who's losing games, then sometimes you've got to change and adapt a little bit. And I believe he'll learn to adapt. He'll bring new things to his game because he's going to have a lot of the games without the ball. So how does he adapt his game? Because he's used to having the ball all the time at Chelsea. So it's it's a good move for him personally. I think he needs to use that loan system, and we've seen over the course of the last few seasons that the loan system can be beneficial for some young footballers.
Yeah, Gilo, Chelsea have been, obviously over the years have been criticised about the way they used the loan system for their young players. But I think, in fairness to them, the last probably 3 years or so, they've used it quite well in that the players who've gone out on loan are now playing, you're looking at Mason Mount and people like this, they're playing first team football now, which obviously traditionally wasn't the case. You had I think there was a point about 10 years ago where Chelsea had 40 players out on loan and none of them were ever going to get near the first team. They were just ended up being sold off. But, they have used it. And if Billy Gilmour goes and has a good season for Norwich, Dave, that's going to be good for Chelsea in the long run, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. As Andy said, Billy Gilmour, if he keeps developing the way he has done since he's been a young boy, and in all credit to Frank Lampard for giving him a chance at Chelsea. And I'm sure we all remember that when he came in, the Liverpool game in particular, where he was absolutely brilliant in defence, midfield, and supporting the front men. It's a great move for Norwich. Norwich have pulled an absolute blinder out of the bag there to get him. I totally agree again with Andy. Playing for a club like Norwich, who are going to be under the cosh against the better teams in the Premier Division, he will have to develop his other side of his game, his defensive side, how he helps the defence, how he gets the ball off the back four and keeps hold of it and then tries to pick people out where they don't give the ball away. So I think it'll benefit everyone. But I honestly believe that this kid is one of the most exciting young prospects in British football or English football in the Premier Division. But it's no good him sat on the bench for Chelsea week in, week out and coming on for 5-10 minutes. It's a great move for him and well done to Norwich for tying that down. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's probably important to get it done quickly.
Yeah, well, I think it was. I think it was so important for the deal to get done early because he's just finished the Euros. He's hot property. He needs to probably go and do the pre-season with his new club to meet his new teammates. He's got a big season ahead of him. Norwich City got relegated the last time they were in the Premier League because of they made some probably small errors in the defensive area.
They didn't sign anyone, did they? Am I correct?
They didn't make many signings, but listen, this boy can make a difference with creativity. I'd like to think he'd make a difference with the defensive side as well. I agree with Gilo there, what he just said about changing the way that he plays defensively. I think he needs to probably be and be tested aggressively, positionally. against some of the best midfielders in the world, because that's what it is. You know what I mean? He's going to be playing against the Pogbas. He's going to be playing against the Gundogan's. They're going to be playing against other players, and I think it's so important for his development that he continues it. I'm guessing he won't be playing against Chelsea, which obviously is normally part of the deal. But the rest of the teams, it'll do Chelsea good because you've got Billy Gilmour against every other Premier League team, so he potentially is going to take points off plenty of other Premier League sides. Listen, they're not stupid, by the way. So I think they've picked a good fit. But like Giles
I think it's a Premier League rule, isn't it, that you're not allowed to play against your home, the club which owns your registration. I think so. Yeah. But it is what it is. Another quick story I wanted to touch on was Derby County. The EFL have decided they're not going to appeal against the decision to just fine the club for accountancy irregularities. And I just wanted to read this quote to you, Andy, because this, for me, spells everything that we've been saying about the EFL. So EFL basically appealed against Derby. They asked them they had to provide their accounts again. And the EFL basically have now said they had no realistic chance of winning the appeal, so they're not going to do it. So what was the point? What was the point?
What was the point? What's the point in doing anything? The AFL have made a mockery of the whole system. They made a mockery 2 weeks ago when they announced the fixtures and put Wycombe Wanderers and Derby County in the Championship and in League One in case the appeal goes south. Well, hang on a minute. You know what I mean? You've got a club like Wycombe Wanderers, by the way, who today have just sold their centre forward to Middlesbrough. So let's say Wycombe Wanderers stay in the Championship. They've lost their best player. So how on earth is that fair? How's it going to work moving forward? They're going to struggle next year without their best players. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. What Reece just said there. What's £100,000 to Derby? If they broke the rules, £100,000 is a drop in the ocean. You know what I mean? If you're going to hit these clubs with a proper punishment, and the punishment's got to be greater than the risk. You know what I mean? They've got to really hit them where it hurts. And you know what I mean? For me, the only way to do it for me is 25 points. Smash 25 if a single team breaks the rules. And that, for me, that's relegation straight away. It's relegation straight away because you're never going to get out of that.
Yeah. Well, here you go. Wycombe's owner has subsequently accused Derby of systematic cheating and said the Derby should be punished further for years upon years of violating EFL rules. So he's not going to say that unless he's got a very good idea that there's something not quite right. Now, we have speculated, Andy, haven't we, about the Wayne Rooney deal when he got signed, and it was the bet. What was it? I forget what the company's called now.
32. Red 32.
And Wayne Rooney came in, and suddenly he's been number 10 all his life, and he was number 32. And they had this brand spanking new sponsor, but we're all expected to, they've had no kind of financial implication into that Wayne Rooney signing for a championship club, etc., etc. We all speculated about that. We joked about it. We don't really know, but we can guess. But I would imagine an owner of another football club is going to know a lot more than what we do. So for him to so blatantly, Dave, come out and say, this is not right, they're cheating, and they've been doing it for years, they're breaking the rules. He's not. I would imagine, just for the legal implications of saying, things like slander and libel, I would imagine he's not going to come out and say that unless he's got a reason.
Oh no! Well, you're right, sir. So he must have information on Derby. He's bound to. Whether it will all come out. By the way, you're saying that with Derby, you could open a can of worms here, because I'm telling you, there's plenty of other clubs at it as well.
Oh,
plenty of clubs. And my God, go back to the 80s. Was it fair that Newcastle signed Kevin Keegan and all the deal and everything was paid for by Newcastle breweries?
Mm-hmm.
They paid for the lot. So and again, go back to when I remember Neil Warnock. I can't think of he could have been at Leeds, played at Cardiff, and he said about when Bellamy signed for Cardiff. How was this right that he's on 120 grand a week? Man City are paying £100,000 of it, and Cardiff are only paying 20 grand of it. Where's the fairness in that to other clubs? So it's been going on for a long time, and then well, I don't know. I don't know how you stop it. Sorry, I don't know how they will stop it. I don't know.
I'd suggest the start would be the EFL implementing their own bloody rules, and I think that's one of the things which me and Andy have talked about a lot with the EFL is they've got all these rules, and the FA and the Premier League. You've got all these rules about financial fair play and this, that, and the other, but they mean nothing because they're never implemented. If a team breaks them, they get a poxy fine. Like what did Man City and get like a fine of like a couple of £1 million? This is the club who's going to go and sign Harry Kane for 120 million, by the way, probably with an upfront payment, and 2 million fine is going to what? Like it's ludicrous, mate. I find it frustrating.
But this is a problem we've got because clubs. Listen, you could overspend by £20 million, and it could go in your favour. It could get you promoted. It can get you the Premier League, which is where the clubs want to be. And if you're getting fined £100,000, well, what's the deterrent? There's no deterrent there, and there's nothing to scare you off. No. It just doesn't make sense to me that all clubs think that they can get round the EFL. The EFL should be in charge of every single call, every single decision, and unfortunately, they made themselves look a little bit silly over the past 18 months with not finishing certain divisions and not implementing certain rules with every single club and being fair and consistent. You know what I mean? I know, with living here, that Steve Gibson, the chairman, has been going on about Derby County for a very long time. By the way, he's been aware this has been going on, and he just wants fair and consistency because he could have easily splashed the same money and broke the rules. And for me, it's just such a shame that this kind of thing is happening because it's just making English football, and especially when it's linked to the Premier League, look very, very silly.
Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? And like at the end of the day, Wycombe would have battled hard to try and stay up, and ultimately Derby's depth and Wayne Rooney's management, you could argue, is what kept them up.
Yeah.
So that has added not just an implication over the long term, but also the short term as well. So yeah, it's one of those, and it's got to be frustrating. And for those clubs like Wycombe who are smaller, haven't got the funding which a Derby County have got, or a Nottingham Forest have got, or a Cardiff City have got, or numerous other clubs, then they depend on those rules being implemented. And if they're sticking to the rules, and then they know that other clubs are blatantly using loopholes and flouting those rules, then of course they're going to kick up a bit of a stink and say, hang on a minute. Why are we sticking to it and they're not? But I guess we'll have to wait and see how that progresses. But it looks for the time being as if it's dead and buried. The EFL are very disappointed, though, Andy, by the decision, even though they're the ones who've chosen not to appeal it further, which is, again, puzzling to say the least, isn't it?
They're disappointed, but they're in charge. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. And I just want to take a second as the Swiss game looks at its penalties. I want to take a second to commend Borussia Dortmund's business model, because they can't compete with Bayern Munich from a club size point of view. But Andy, I want you to tell the people that the figure which you mentioned to me and Gilmour when we were talking about it before we went on the show. Obviously, Jadon Sancho, for anyone who doesn't know, is going to United. Yet another young player who they've picked up from an under 23s in Premier League or France or wherever, signed for 12 million and then sold for a huge profit a couple of years later. But what was the figures that you said, mate?
Yeah, so my dad sent me a message earlier on about he compared it to Middlesbrough. So Middlesbrough spent £32 million on Britt Sombolonga, Ashley Fletcher, Rhodri Giggs, and Guardiola, and they made zero profit. Where Borussia Dortmund has spent £32 million on Sancho, Dembele, Aubameyang, and Pulisic, and they've sold all of those players, or will have sold all those players by in 2 weeks' time, for a total of £309 million, which is just absolutely amazing. A business model to die for, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to commend them, mate. And you mentioned again just before we started when we were talking about it, but Gilo, it's not just a case of them signing those young players. They've got to scout them and get the right players to then be able to sell them on as a profit. And it looks like they'll do the same with Haaland as well. Whether it be this summer or next summer, he'll probably go for 100 million because he's a striker. And they've made a massive profit again. But they do have to find the right players to use within this model, don't they?
Of course they do. And as you mentioned there, Si, we were talking before we came on air, and Andy was saying, the guy, he's probably the most important guy at Borussia Dortmund, is their scout. that's picking up all these kids. And listen, they're coming over to England and they're taking the cream of the cream, if you like, and they're signing. But they're also, and mustn't take this away from the club and the manager and the coaches, they're developing them as well. They're making them much better players than what they were when they picked them up. But they can see the potential. They're bringing these kids. I would say, I don't know, but the agents involved with these young players, I'm sure there must be a footballer involved in this to say, listen, go to Borussia Dortmund because they'll make you a better player than what you'll be at the clubs you are at the moment, at the present time. I think it happened. Didn't De Bruyne, when he left Chelsea, where did he go?
Yeah, he went to it's one of the German teams. I forget who it was. Might have been Gladbach. I don't know. Someone will tell us now in the chat. I forget who it was. But it was one of the less fashionable German clubs. But like Reese in the chat's made just a phenomenal point. He said, forget that side. They not only sign youngsters, but they allow them time to develop, play them in competitive games. And there's not often that big clubs will do that. And I mean, I was Wolfsburg that De Bruyne went to.
Right,
but,
okay.
Like in Sancho's case, and he was 17. Man City offered him 30 grand a week and wanted to sign him to whatever 3-year contract. But they wanted him to follow, pretty much what Foden has done and kind of be in and out of the first team, play in the League Cup, etc. And he had the confidence in himself to say, no, I want to play first team football. Now, you've got to have you've got to have a lot of confidence in yourself to be able to say that and do that at the age of 17. But you can't fault him. He went to a foreign country, 3 years or whatever. And by the way, not just 3 years of playing full first team football, 3 years, particularly the last 2 seasons, his figures are ridiculous. 20 goals, 20 assists the season before last. I think something similar this year. How much confidence does it take, though, mate, to go to a country where you don't speak the language, age 17?
Listen, I think it's commendable for him, and I think that's why people like Jude Bellingham has gone and followed his path, because they've seen the success and the progression and how quickly he can do it at that kind of club and at that kind of environment. I think it's so important. Giles said there, but we spoke before, and said about the scouting network. For me, there's 3 steps. You know what I mean? You've got your scouts, which is great. You know what I mean? He's identified players who he thinks can make a difference. Then you've got your coaches who get hold of them and teach them and drum into them how important it is to play the Borussia Dortmund way, an attacking style with pace and power and speed, which is so important. And then the manager's got to play them. You know what I mean? So the manager's got to give them an opportunity at the young age. So, you know what I mean? It's not about results. You know what I mean? You look at Bayern Munich, everything's results based. It's results.
Yeah.
I look at Borussia Dortmund, and it's not all about results, because it can't be. Because if you're trying to progress through 4, 5, 6 players who are at a young age, you've got to sometimes swallow a defeat here and there, or get knocked out of a cup, or doing something, because results have got to go out the window if you're looking at progression and you're looking at players. Because players, yes, you want to try and win and you want to try and win games, which is great, but with the development they've had, I think that's probably why they've failed at the final hurdle, and Bayern Munich have had so much success over the last few years, because yes, individually they've done great, but collectively they've probably struggled a little bit more than they wanted to. But the business model works. They're still in the Champions League season after season. They're probably finished in the top 2, top 3. They'll probably sometimes win a cup. Individually, Sancho's get a huge move to United. Haaland's having a fantastic career, fantastic time. Aubameyang, a pure
Spain
goal
missed
scorer.
their first
Dembele,
penalty.
have they? So
Busquets.
for me, I think it's an amazing opportunity for Sancho. But I think other players who follow suit, and I'll use Jude Bellingham as an example. And I think if it wasn't for Jude Bellingham's move to Borussia Dortmund, he wouldn't have been anywhere near the England squad.
No.
No, I agree with that, because he would have been in and out of the United team, because he wouldn't have started United. He wouldn't have started week in, week out. There's just no way that he'd be able to do it.
And he also wouldn't have played in the Champions League side, because everyone goes on about the games against Man City. You know what I mean? The standout games for Jude Bellingham. He's played more than these 2 games, by the way, but everyone goes on about the 2 games against Man City. The game when he scored, which got chalked off for a tackle on the goalkeeper, which was a dubious one, and the second game, which I thought he was very good. He dictated play, he dominated the game at a young age, when they were losing the game probably throughout the night. But he wouldn't have got that at United. He probably wouldn't have got on the pitch a lot with Fernandes dictating play. Pogba's had a good season. McTominay He's had a solid season. He wouldn't have got probably anywhere near the team, never mind, or sometimes maybe the squad. So for me, it's testament to another boy, another player who's had confidence in going to another country and having to learn all his new things, new lifestyle, new environments, new language, new style, a way of living, and hopefully he's going to come back 10 times a better player like Jadon Sancho will be.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. I see Kay Giles just said, like, Juan Mata's signed a new deal at United. I just don't see how he's going to play, and that surely means that Jesse Lingard is going to go, because you've got Daniel James, you've got Diallo, obviously got Sanchez come in. Some of them are going to have to go. I can understand them keeping Mata. He's experienced. He's not expecting to play, each week. But I think Daniel James might go on loan. I think Lingard will probably be sold as well. But Daniel James, I think, has got to be careful where he goes on loan. He needs to play Premier League football. He needs to play week in, week out. So the last thing he wants to do is go somewhere where he's going to then again be in and out of the team, because he's an important part of his career. Because I thought he was one of Wales's better players actually in the Premier League, because I think he's improved a lot under Solskjaer, which I'm not sure I thought I'd ever say that, but there we go.
I agree.
Yeah.
So what I want to kind of
say on that point, sorry to butt in there.
Yeah,
you're on about, for me, a team like Newcastle United. I look at Willock from Arsenal, took the boy on loan. No one had really ever heard of him. Giving him an opportunity in the first team. He's got a good reputation. He's got good potential. But he scored something like 6 goals in 6 games, so 7 goals in 7 games in the Premier League. So these kind of teams are, they're not fashionable as in they're going to win the Premier League, but they're playing the Premier League week in, week out. They play against the big six all the time, and every other team. So for me, if players are going to go, those clubs would snap their hands off, because especially when St James's is full, 52,000. There's a good atmosphere. You know what I mean? He's used to playing at Old Trafford. For me, that would be a good substitute, so to speak, in terms of in going to a passionate and healthy football club.
Yeah, you mentioned Newcastle, and like Phil Jones is a baffling one for me, because to me, like, he's never going to play regularly for United again, never, because they're going to sign a centre back. They've already got at least 3 in front of him, probably 4 if you include the youngster they got. So he's getting whatever he's getting, 100 grand a week at least. Like, I don't understand why at his age, because he's still relatively young. He's not like 30s. I think he's like mid-20s because he went there so young. Why wouldn't he go to a club like Newcastle, probably still get close to 100 grand a week, and play football? It baffles me, and I will never understand it. But maybe you can give me an insight as an ex-striker and an ex-footballer, because I do not understand it at all.
Oh, listen, I've had my grumbles on our show a number of times about this, because I honestly don't get it. I don't get the situation. It's not a money thing. When you look back, and Giles will tell you, there's nothing better than to play football. You work all week and turn up on a Saturday expecting to play, wanting to play, and if you don't play, then you've got nothing to look forward to. And then you do the same thing again, and then you do the same thing again. By the time 3 weeks is gone, you've lost fitness. You get thrown in. You can't do yourself justice. I honestly don't get it. These guys, if they leave Man United, for example, on 100 grand a week, they're going to go to Newcastle United or another Premier League team, possibly earn the same money, if not just a little bit less. So it's not like
they're going to be struggling on the bread line.
They're not on the poverty line, are they? So for me, it's all about playing football. You know what I mean? And winning trophies and trying to be the best person you can be. I look at Jesse Lingard, for example. Jesse Lingard gave himself the best possible chance and opportunity to go to the Euros by going to West Ham. He didn't need to go to West Ham. He didn't need to take that risk, but he took that risk because he wanted to go to the Euros, and it nearly worked out for him. You know what I mean? For me, if he'd have probably pushed that button a little bit earlier at the start of the season and had a full season, he would have definitely been in the Euros. And I felt sorry for him in terms of that, because there was probably no better player on form, but reputationally wise, Jordan Henderson. Reputationally wise, other players took his place. You know what I mean? Because they were ahead of him in the pecking order. But for me, I just felt so sorry for those kind of players who want to play. Because for me, and listen, I'll go back to the point where I said that, Giles, you want to play. And if you don't want to play, there's something wrong. You shouldn't be a footballer, because everyone would give their left arm to be a footballer.
So from what I can gather, I'm reading the comments of the live chat and on BBC's live text, it seems like the Swiss had the advantage in the penalty shootout early on, But
They missed
from what I can
every
gather,
penalty after that.
yeah, from what I can gather, this was one of the worst penalty shootouts. So like in the was it the Europa League final where like
finished
every player
3-1.
scored?
Yeah, finished 3-1.
So Spain are through.
Yeah, Spain are through 3-1. Yeah.
Wow. And lucky, I've got to say, by the way, the Swiss's performances in the last couple of games have been superb, and it shows that actually Wales probably got away with one and had a good result against them because they're much better than what I thought they were pre-tournament.
But how much of a regret though is this for a Swiss player fan? Manager,
oh God, can you
this
imagine?
is a massive regret because now there's a semi-final. You know what I mean? They've given themselves a wonderful opportunity by progressing through where they've gone, and now they push Spain all the way to where they pushed them. And,
it's got to be frustrating, haven't it?
Yeah.
What do we think of the sending off, by the way?
I didn't see
a few
it.
like that, haven't there?
Yeah,
so
I didn't see it.
It's been much of a muchness. I think you've had the Ampadu one, you've had this one. There was the one in the game the other day. I can't remember what game it was. But there's been a few where it's almost like the player goes for the ball, and then it's the follow through, and they stand on their foot or their ankle, and of course in slow motion looks dreadful. Looks like they're trying to do some damage, but I actually don't think it is that. But in this day and age, with VAR, it's sending off.
It is in Europe side. I think it is by European officials. Giles will tell you. You know what I mean? In British football, tackles get looked another in a different direction. But you know what I mean, playing in national football, Giles would have made a tackle on a Saturday for his club, and he probably would have got away with it. You go abroad to play for Wales and you do the same tackle. Referee will give a free kick. It's opinions, and that's what makes football good. It gives us something to talk about. But for me, I think it's such a grey area because how can you stop a follow through in a tackle? I'm no tackler, by the way, but how can you stop your body, your momentum following through? You know what I mean? I was an awful tackler being an attacking player, but I don't see how you can. If you want to try and win the ball and you're going through, how can you stop there? You've got to follow on and go through. It's impossible.
Yeah, I think it sometimes depends on where that follow through is hitting the player as well. Like I thought that the Ampadu one was red, but I thought that happened because he went for the ball with his right foot, so his body was in the whole wrong shape. So whatever contact he made with the ball, his follow through was always going to land sort of around ankle height on the player. Whereas if he had gone with his left foot, which was the more natural position, his body would have been turned away from the player, and his follow through wouldn't have made that connection. And for me, that's a technical error from the boy. He didn't want to go with his left foot for whatever reason. And, he's young and stuff like that. And I'm sure he'll learn his lesson. And, over the years, we've seen how many young players get sent off in European tournaments for tackles and things that they perhaps would have got away with at domestic level. It's just part and parcel, isn't it? I remember when I was younger, United had to learn. It felt like they were learning for like 5 seasons when their British clubs got back into Europe. It felt like they got like players banned and red carded for nothing for years, and they had to really learn how to play European football again. But hopefully all these young guys will learn. I said the other day, but I thought Shaqiri of Switzerland has been absolutely outstanding this tournament. I thought he's really good. I think he's I think he's captain, isn't he, as well?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I think he is.
And he's played like a captain, in fairness. And like I joked, didn't I, that he's like Renato Sanchez, where every time there's a tournament, he plays amazing, gets his big move, and then he goes quiet for a bit. But you can't knock him. Like, he's been superb, and he's been a big reason, not just attacking, but defensively as well, why Switzerland have gone so far. But Gilo, anyone stood out for you from Switzerland other than Shaqiri? Ferovic, is it?
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm not very good with the names, Si, but listen, I think I said to you earlier, I think the Euros have been absolutely brilliant for the so-called lesser nations have really developed and have become teams now. We saw Austria the other night, Czech Republic, difficult, have been difficult. They've had a decent tournament. Finland, the so-called lesser nations have not been hammered by anyone. They're standing up and they're holding their own. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. And Switzerland tonight in this game had a guy sent off, and they've still pushed Spain all the way, and they've taken it to penalties. Now that's compared to Spain, who are a giant world footballing nation, compared to Switzerland. that is a phenomenal achievement, really,
Yeah.
to take it that far. But going back to the earlier points that you and Andy were talking about, I look at the tackling today. Are these lads taught how to tackle? Because when I started playing football in the 70s, the defenders would do sessions on tackling. You were taught how to tackle, how to dig, get your body right. I'm sorry, Ethan Ampadu, you don't tackle with your right foot up in the air. That, to me, that's going over the top of the ball.
Yeah.
You get your foot side on, your knee sit stiff, your elbow round, and you come through. You try and take the ball, and if you can push the man back, then even better. There was a time, and I'm sure every football ground in the country in the 70s and the 80s, where tackling was an art, and a defender or a midfield player making a great tackle got the fans up. They really loved that, because that comes from there. That's passion, that's heart, that's giving everything. But I think all we see today is sly little tackles coming in from the side and sloppy, if you like. I don't think these lads know how to tackle properly. Before I shut up, that the other night, remember the penalty when the keepers come out and punched?
Yeah.
And you thought, how can a keeper come out and punch and then stop his arm?
Yeah.
You're going to follow through. So how was that a penalty? I don't know.
But that's the thing, Giles, isn't it? You know what I mean? Regardless how much of the ball he got, you know what I mean? He got a little touch on it on the way to go and follow through. And you know, if he'd have completely missed the ball and punched him in the face, then I'm in agreement. But he nicked the ball, and if he's nicked the ball, it's like winning a tackle. If you've got the ball, you've got the ball. There's no hairs or graces behind it. If you've touched the ball, you've touched the ball. You don't have to touch all the ball, because if he's punched the ball, he's not touching all the ball anyway. He's just touching the middle bit. I just don't agree with, and you know, we talked about VAR, or Si spoke about VAR a minute ago. What's winding me up about VAR at the minute is when VAR tell the referee go and look at the monitors, you know straight away it's a red card. So you know what I mean, for me that's got to change. There's got to mix it up a little bit. You know what I mean? For me, just to keep the suspense, because the players know, the TV cameras know, everybody knows who's watching the game that that's a red card. And I think sometimes the referee's got to go, right, I've got to make my own decision. I'd love to hear the conversation, what's getting said. You know what I mean? Like, I want you to go and look at the TV monitor again. Brilliant. I'll go and look at it. Not go and look at the TV monitor again. It's a red card. Because if that's the decision, just give the red card. Don't look at the TV monitor. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So who's making the decisions? Because for me, the referees have seen it. Some referees, they give yellow cards for the tackles, and then they're getting asked to go look at it again. But then they're getting made to look stupid by somebody else. You know what I mean? Yes, it might be horrific. It might have, the injury might be horrific. But these players, they're getting back up, and I just think it's a grey area where we probably need to be a little bit stronger and a little bit more consistent with mixing the results up. Because for me, you can't always go to the TV monitor at the side and change the tune, because everyone knows then, oh, he's gone to the side, he's going to change it over. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. No, you're right, Dan. Totally right. I totally agree.
But on your point, who's impressed me with Switzerland? Mbolo, the centre forward, he scored against Wales.
Yes,
I thought he was fantastic against them with his header, but I thought his pace, his power in the Welsh game, he gets behind, he runs behind. I think he's been quieter as the tournament's gone on, because they've been more defensive, but he's an outlet. He's got pace, he's got power. He could get a decent move. So
him and Severovic, like a good partnership up front. So a bit of team news from tonight's Italy-Belgium game, which is what we're going to finish off on now. De Bruyne starts behind Lukaku. Hazard is on the bench, which I always felt like one of them was going to be in the starting lineup. And looking at it, I can't see. Hazard's not even on the bench.
No. So he's
out.
I thought he had. I thought it was cramp, which he came off with at the end. Obviously, it wasn't. It must
but
be
he's coming back from a long-term injury, isn't he?
So it was always going to happen. Listen, they can't play Italy without those two. You know what I mean? They at least had to have one of them. So will he be 100% fit? He can't be.
Do you think it's a risk though not having him on the bench, or do you think he's injured? He's injured.
If he's not fit, listen, teams have put players on the bench. England did it with Harry Maguire. That you name him on the bench, but have no intention of bringing him on. What's the point? If he's not fit, he's not fit. You can't bring him on because listen, there's people whose job it is to watch their warm-ups, and if you're watching the warm-up and you don't see Hazard out there, people go, he hasn't warmed up, so he's certainly not coming on. You know what I mean? He's not warming up during the game. He's not coming on. There's no point putting him on a team sheet just for the sake of doing it, because for me, yes, people can say mind games, but mind games only work if he's running around. And if he's not running around and kicking balls around, then it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking more if he's like 80% fit, but he's not fit enough to really play. No. If he's 80% fit, I'd probably still have him on the bench just in case you need a goal with 10 minutes to go, because, you know, and I'm talking if you're going out, it's 1-0 to Italy and you need something, and 80% fit Hazard is worth a gamble. But then you look at their bench, they got Batshuayi, they got Chadley, they got Benteke, Dendoncker, Mertens. They've got some players there. But
listen, Si, as a coach, Roberto Martinez, Thierry Henry, Belgium have got a chance to win this. You know what I mean? They've got an opportunity to win it. And then you've got a semi-final against Spain and a potential final against England, Denmark, Czech Republic, Ukraine, etc. If Hazard doesn't play today, he could play in the semi-final and the final.
Yes.
I mean, they're looking at the bigger picture. But if he plays tonight, his tournament could be over, because he's got a week. He'll have a week between the semi-final and the final, and that's not long enough if he gets a strain or a pull. So his whole tournament could be, if it's not over now, if he gets injured today, it would be over. So I think it's probably more precaution than anything, because listen,
it's a gamble to a certain extent, though, isn't it? If they go out,
if he's only 70% fit today, I probably would have done the same thing and saved him for a potential next game, because if he plays today and we win and he gets another knock on it, or a strain gets bigger,
and he's out of the tournament,
then he'll be 50% fit for the next one, so he definitely can't play in the semi. So what's the point?
So the Italy side, no real surprises there. No. You know, you've got the old men at the back, you've got Spinazzola, and then it's their midfield that's really impressed me with their wing. Two fullbacks have been very good, but Verratti, Jorginho and Barella, I think, have just been outstanding. And then, of course, you've got Immobile with Chiesa starts and Insigne playing off him. Very, very good team. It's going to be a very enjoyable game. But, Gilo, how do you see this game playing out, and who's going to win? What's your predictions?
Right. Well, the other night you asked me, the last time I was on, and I said 2-0 England. Andy said 3-0. So we got that one right. You two went for Sweden. I went for the Ukraine. So I got that one right.
On fire,
Someone's keeping track. Someone's keeping track, isn't they? Someone's got to.
I've had a couple of quid on it, lads, so don't worry about that. Listen, honestly, I don't know what it is. A fabulous team, Belgium. But going back 4 years when Hazard was one of the best players in the world, I just felt that there's something mentally not right there. They've not achieved. I can see Italy winning this game, because I saw Italy the other night having to dig in and grind out a result, and they got it. And that's the old Italy as well. Italy used to win games like that on a regular basis. Stop you from playing, not concede, and nick a goal. But I think this Italian team, they can do one or the other. They can really get at you, as they did in the first two games against Turkey and Switzerland, when they put 3 on both teams. Obviously, against Wales, they rested 8 players and they were happy with the 1-0. But I honestly think Italy will be in the final of this tournament. So if England got to do it, they're going to have to beat Italy in the final.
Yeah, I think Italy have been the best team I've seen out of all the teams which we've watched play football over the last couple of weeks. Defensively, that back five just looks the perfect mix of experience, youth, quality, traditional defending. And I said before the tournament, in my opinion, the best goalkeeper in Europe as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got that midfield. Verratti and Jorginho are about as good as you're going to get in terms of central midfielders. And Barella's been exceptionally impressive. It's going to be very difficult for Belgium. I said before the tournament, I felt like Belgium's chance for this generation to win a trophy and get the sort of monkey off their back, if you like. I felt like that was 2016.
Yeah.
Because I felt like if they'd beaten Wales, they probably would have beat Portugal and so on. But they came unstuck when Wales dug in. Italy are going to dig in, and so
of course they will. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. And how do you see it going? And also, what do you think the score is going to be, mate? And also, people in the comments, get your predictions in.
Listen, I'm first and foremost, I hope it's a cracking game. I look at Lukaku against Chiellini, Bonucci. If any two defender pairing is going to keep him quiet, it's going to be the Juventus pairings against the know how he plays for Inter Milan. So I think they've got that as an advantage. I know you could probably say it the other way around. You just said there about the goalkeeper. I think he's had an outstanding tournament. He's pulled some great saves off when he needed to. The spine of the team for me, you've got your Immobile, your Verratti and Jorginho, your Chiellini and your Bonucci, and then your goalkeeper. For me, it's got no weakness. You know what I mean? And then for me, I'm glad Chiesa is playing because I thought when he came on in extra time against Austria, I thought he was fantastic. I thought his goal was brilliant. Insignia's he's like a little magician. He gets things going. He wants the ball all the time in tight areas. I don't see many weaknesses. They work really hard. They're fit. For me, I agree with Giles. I think they'll win. I think it probably is a mental block. They hit the quarter final against Wales with a defeat. I think it's going to happen again today, and I think 2-0 Belgium. 2-0 Italy. Sorry, Belgium.
So
2-0
the one weakness I see with Italy is if Belgium were to be the team who got ahead. If Belgium were to go into the last 20, 15 minutes 1-0 up or 2-0 up, I look at the Italian bench, and if Italy go ahead, I find it difficult to believe that they won't be able to hold out because their defensive options off the bench are also incredible to shore things up. They've got a couple of world-class, holding midfielders, central defenders, whatever they need to shore it up. Looks good off the bench.
Yeah.
Attacking-wise, that's where I think they're a little bit lacking in depth. If the main three, it does not happen for them tonight. That's where I think they're a bit weaker. Obviously, but you have got Belotti, who's probably their one, really real quality striker off the bench. But it's going to be interesting. I think Italy are going to win 1-0. I said that the other day, and I still stick to that. But if De Bruyne turns it on, you could easily see him doing something special. It could be 2-3-0 to Belgium in 20 minutes because he's that good. He's that special. I also think Tillmans is an absolute superb player, and I believe that he is the heir to the De Bruyne throne, if you like it, from an international point of view. And I think he's good enough to do it as well. I just think if De Bruyne, Tillmans, and Witsel particularly, if they have the game of their life, that's how Belgium will win, is those three in the middle of a park. So that's just my opinion, but that's how I see Belgium winning.
What I can see, Sai, is Roberto Mancini, who I think is a great manager, and he's grabbed this Italian team now. And before the tournament, I saw a lot of Italian fans saying how pleased they were that he's got the job. He's made Italy a team again. He's brought the country back together. He's not just picking people because of their reputation. He's picked a lot of players from not the so-called big name clubs in Italy. But I'm telling you now, if Italy, they will have a midfield player that will, or try to. De Bruyne is a world-class player, but they will do a job on him because they know if they stop him, they stop Belgium.
Yeah, but that's where I think Tillmans could be important because he's got the quality to do. He's creative from deep. So if De Bruyne is sort of cancelled out, Tillmans is capable of doing something, but it's whether he can on the biggest stage in the biggest games, I guess. But I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something, but I've forgotten what it was. That's what I was going to say, Gilo. I said on Wednesday, I think Mancini, on your point, has made Italy look as together as a team and in conjunction with their fans. It reminds me of the Welsh relationship with the fans and the players from 2016. They all look so together. And what a clever move, by the way, by Mancini in the group stage, bringing on the goalkeeper and those players to make sure, because he said everyone will get at least a few minutes in this tournament. But what does that do? That just brings the whole squad closer together because everyone's happy for that goalkeeper who's just he hasn't just come and sat on the bench for the whole tournament. He's part of it. And I think that just amplifies that togetherness. So, yeah, my heart says Italy, but like Rob says there, Belgium 2-1 for him. I just got a feeling with Belgium tonight, but we'll see.
We'll see, yeah.
Indeed.
Can't wait.
Gilo, you're with us next week for a couple of days, aren't you? I believe.
I'm with,
Monday and
Wednesday, yeah.
And then Friday, we have a certain Scotsman joining us. And then Monday, me, Andy, and Rhodri Giggs will be rounding up the tournament, and we'll be giving our teams of the tournament, among other things. But it's going to be a fun week next week. So please do join us Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the following Monday, 7 till 8. Myself, Andy, Gilo, Rhodri Giggs, and the Flying Scotsman is making an appearance, one appearance in the whole tournament. But I say it's because he was expecting Scotland to make it to the semi-finals at least, and that's why he picked the 9th. But it's backfired on him. That's what I say. Yeah. But no, looking forward to having good old shows next week. Gilo, it's been a pleasure as always, my friend. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great, Andy. Great, Si. Listen, I said the other night, it's enjoyable for me listening to you two, and I don't want you to blow. I'm not blowing your trumpet, Andy, but I find you really intelligent about football. For someone my age, 65, listening to a young guy like you,
listen, come on.
He should be with a club. His knowledge is brilliant. He's spot on, Andy.
I appreciate that, Gilo. Really nice.
Young. You lost me at young.
I like the young bit. So instead of title X, just put young. England,
Andy Campbell, young
Andy Campbell. Yeah.
There you go. That's that.
Love it.
Absolutely. Thank you as ever to all our hardcore viewers who join us every single show. Appreciate you guys massively. And to the people who are asking, what's the news? Can't quite talk about it yet, but it's just a bit of fun, and we appreciate you all. But there is news coming, and it'll be soon. Just got a few things to sort out over the next week or so, but it's good. It's good. That's all I will say. But Andy, as ever, mate, Andy Campbell.
Young Andy Campbell was in. Yeah, everyone enjoy the game tonight, and come on, England.
Yes, I agree with you, Andy. Look at Si there.
For the audio viewers, he's scratching his head.
Scratching my head, man. Scratching my head. No, look, I said it before. Look, mate, I won't support England, but if England win, I will be absolutely delighted for you. That's all I would go as far to say. Good night. God bless. I love you all. I'm going to bed.
In the beginning, we are the ones of the spoken